Hello all, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in today's video we will be covering tuples in Python. Tuples are very much similar to list in Python. Well, just like list, tuples offer indexing, and you can have elements with multiple data types, with mixed data types, and tuples can be homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous simply means that a tuple have the same elements, same data type of all elements, whereas heterogeneous tuple refers to the elements with different data types, just like list. So the major difference between tuples and list is how they are created, and also tuples are immutable in nature, whereas list is mutable in nature. So what is if you want to know deeply about list, I have a detailed video on list in Python. You can find the link in the description below. So moving forward, let's see how we can create a tuple in Python. So in order to create a tuple in Python, we basically use round brackets, as you can see over here. So let's create an empty tuple. So I've created a variable t1 equals to, and I'm just using round brackets to create a tuple. So currently I'm not passing anything in this, so it will be an empty tuple. So I'm printing this tuple, I'm printing the type of this tuple. So as you can see, the type of this tuple is tuple itself. Now let's say I want to create a tuple of integers. So how can I create that? So you just need to open round brackets, then you have to enter elements. Each element should be separated by commas, and then you should close the round brackets. And then if you hit enter, then you can see we have a tuple. Also, you can have a tuple with mixed data types, as I mentioned earlier. You can have integer, floats, string itself inside a tuple. So that way you can have multiple data types inside a tuple, and also you can have a tuple inside a tuple. As you can see, the last element is itself a tuple. Now, let's say you want to create a tuple with one element and you pass it like this. So what do you think what will happen? You will have a tuple in which one is there. But if you see, the type is basically not a tuple. Let me just print out the type also. So you can have a surety about it. So if you see, the class of this particular object is integer, but we have defined it in a way it is tuple. So in order to have a one element inside a tuple, you need to proceed. So you need to add a comma after the element. So that way you can have one element inside a tuple. And as you can see, now we have only one element inside a tuple, and the data type also is tuple. Okay, moving forward, as I mentioned, that tuple also offers indexing just like list. So basically tuples are ordered in nature. That simply means it has indexing through which you can access its elements. So let's say you want to print out the first element from a tuple. So first of all, you need a tuple object, which has already been created. And then you put square brackets, which is the main syntax for slicing in every data type in Python, let it be list, let it be string, or let it be tuple. So since the Python offers two types of indexing, one is backward indexing and one is forward indexing. Forward indexing starts with 0 and backward indexing starts with -1. If you want to have a deep understanding of indexing, I have a detailed video regarding that also. So you can find the description, you can find the link in that link to the video in the description below. And if you just hit enter, as you can see, the first element is 10, and now you can see 10 is here. And let's say you want to print out the last element of the tuple. Now we can make use of the backward indexing. Since no matter how long the tuple is, no matter how many elements are there inside your tuple, the last element will always be at -1, since backward indexing starts with -1. So if you see, we are accessing last element in the same way we access the first element. Tuple object, square bracket, and the index itself, and then again a square bracket. So as you can see, the last element was a tuple, and here we can see the last element is a tuple itself. Also, if you want to have access of to multiple elements, you can simply use the range syntax. So basically, this particular square bracket, which is the syntax of slicing overall in Python, it basically offers three types of basically offers a syntax which consists of three values: start, stop, and step, where colon refers to the range. For example, here I have written 0:4. That simply means I want first four elements. So you might be wondering, we are actually slicing from 0 to 4, so it should be 5 elements. But this 4, that is the stopping position, stepping position is by default 1. So this 4 corresponds to the stopping position and this 0 corresponds to the starting position. This 4 is exclusive. So the tuple will print out the element at 0th position, first position, second position, and third position. And as you can see, the first 4 elements are 10, 10, 10, and -2. So that way you can have multiple elements. Let's say you want to have each every second element from the tuple. So you go like 0. In case you don't mention the starting position, that is 0, Python will automatically give the default value of for the starting part to be 0. The stopping position is the end, that is the length of the tuple, and the stepping position by default is 1. So I want to go till the length of the tuple. This also, if you don't mention, will be calculated by the Python itself, basically the default value. And I want every second element. So this time I have to change the step value. The step value is 1 by default. So I need to change the step value, and here I put 2. And if you print, as you can see, I'm getting every second element. So let's see how do we get it. So we are starting with 0, so that is 10. 0 plus 2 is 3. So third element is also 10. 3 plus 2 is 5. So 3 plus 2 is 5. Sorry, 0, 1, 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. So fourth element is Python. Now 4 plus 2 is 6. There does not exist any sixth element. So we only get these elements as the first, as every second element from the tuple. Now let's say you want to reverse a tuple, basically reverse the elements of a tuple. So for this purpose, we make use of the backward indexing. So you want to start with -1. So you want to have a starting position as -1. If you do not mention, that is the stopping position. If you do not mention, again it will be taken care by Python itself. Now you want to have shift of -1 from -2, sorry, -1 to -2 to -3. For that you need to change the step value. In order to travel from -1 to -2, you should be adding -1 to each negative value. So -1 and -1 will be -2, -2 and -1 will be -3, so on and so forth. For that condition, for that purpose, we need to mention -1 as a stepping value. And if you hit shift enter, as you can see, the elements of the tuple are reversed. So that way you can use the reverse of a tuple. Now, moving forward, update and delete tuple elements. So in this particular section, you will get answer why tuples are immutable. Immutability simply means that you cannot update the elements inside a tuple, or you cannot delete the elements inside a tuple. So what I'm doing here, I'm basically updating the elements inside a tuple. I'm accessing the first element, and then I'm assigning that particular element to 10. And if I just hit enter, you will see I'm printing I'm printing the value of a tuple, but then when I hit this statement, when Python reaches at this statement, I'm getting a type error. What does this type error says? Type tuple object does not support item assignment because tuples are immutable in nature. The same error you will get if you try to delete an element inside a tuple. So as you can see, print T3, and then I'm using the del keyword to delete the element. I'm accessing the first element because I want to delete the first element. And if I hit shift enter, as you can see, I have the tuple itself. And then again, I'm getting the same error, which is tuple object does not support item deletion. So now you have the answer that tuples are immutable because they do not support updation and they do not support deletion. Moving forward, some functions you can leverage with tuples. So let's say you want to count the number of elements, particular number of elements inside a tuple. I want to count how many times 10 is there inside a tuple. So what you can do is just create a tuple object, then with the dot operator, then count, and then you pass the element which you want to count. And if you see, since 10 is 3 times inside my tuple, 1, 2, 3, I'm getting the count as 3. Now let's say you know that there is some element, there is a value that exists inside your tuple, but you do not know the index of that particular value. So for that, you can make use of the index function. So how do we do that? The functionality is same as the count function. You create a tuple object that is T3. dot index, and then you pass the value for which you want the index to be returned. So I passed -2. So technically Python should return 0, 1, 2, and 3. And if I hit shift enter, as you can see, the index is 3. Now, let's say you want to know the length of your tuple. Basically, the length simply means the number of elements inside the tuple. For that, you can use the length function. You just need to pass the tuple object inside the length, and then you can have the number of elements, or basically the length of the tuple. That is 6. Now let's say you want to have the maximum and minimum value of a tuple. These maximum and minimum value works similarly on list itself. Now I'm printing out maximum and minimum value. As you can see, I have the tuple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The maximum value is 5, so it's printed here, and the minimum value is 1, so it's printed here. But what happens when you have a tuple with mixed data types? For example, you have integers, you have decimals, you have strings, you have a tuple. So what happens? So here, as you can see, if I just hit shift enter, tuple 3 consists of integers, um, a string, and a tuple. And if I just uncomment this and try to print out the maximum value of 42, so and for minimum value for t, sorry, not t2, it should be t3. And if you see, I'm getting a type error. Greater than not supported between instances of string and integer. You cannot compare a string with an integer. So in order to use the maximum minimum function inside, in order to use maximum and minimum function with a tuple needs to have homogeneous data type. That simply means all the elements inside a tuple should have a same data type, because you cannot compare one data type with another data type. Now, there is some exercise for you. So I have this basically two tuples defined over here. I would like you to mention the answers you would expect in the comment section. I would really love to see your outputs. So that way we can see how tuples can actually work. And I will also know that you have a good understanding of tuples. So this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this and you have a clear understanding of what tuples are and why tuples are immutable in nature. If you have any queries, please mention them in the comment section. I will try to resolve. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That way it would help me to reach more and more people. Thank you so much and have a great day. I will see you soon.